All right. It's the Live Drive Jive Archive with your host. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you may be. Welcome to another Live Drive Jive. It is 6:30 a.m. on the 16th of September. It's a Thursday. Thursdays are a big day for me. A lot of classes. Kind of daunting. Once I get in the flow of it, though, it tends to go a little more smoothly. Best laid plans of mice and men, as they say. I was just listening to the Richard Dolan Global Revolution message again, I think for the third time now. It's got a lot of information in it. He gives a breakdown of the 9/11 debacle and how scientifically everything about the official narrative is wrong. It's just a lie. But I mean, the CIA openly said that. They said when everything the American public believes is a lie, then the disinformation campaign is complete. I'd say they're pretty close to that now. You've got 90% of the people running around like chickens with their heads chopped off, completely out of their minds, in just falling in line with the MSM rhetoric, which baffles me. Those guys on television, those news media guys, whoever they may be, all the CIA guys, Rachel Maddow, CIA, Harvard University, working for the Central Kingdom, Piers Morgan, obviously a paid shill, Bill Maher, oh my God, what a puke, what an absolute piece of shit. Who else is there? Joe Rogan now, total fucking wastrel. There's one I'm thinking of, that's a CNN guy. He's got gray hair, he's total CIA background, just openly. These guys are openly anti-intelligence officers that work for dumbing down the American people. And yet, I see family and friends quoting those guys and quoting that narrative and saying, oh, but it's the science. And it's not any science they've done. You guys aren't any kind of scientists of any caliber. And they're just saying, oh, well, they told me it's the science. And how is that different than any faith-based belief system? You haven't gone out there and proved any of this. You haven't researched any of it. And what happened to the maxim of our past, which was question authority and question everything? And I know certain of you out there are obviously smarter than that, and you're not drinking the Kool-Aid. But there are so many who I consider to be relatively intelligent people, friends and family alike, that are just parroting this narrative. It just baffles me to no end. It's like you guys are the ones that should be on the forefront of questioning it and standing up for our individual freedoms. But some of you are the first to just completely hoodwink yourselves into thinking that you're doing something good for humanity, when it's absolutely the complete opposite of what we've always grown up with as our culture. A culture of freedom and independence and self-reliance and hard work, saving over time, being thrifty and frugal and this, that, and the other thing. It's turned into a situation of complete decadence and degeneration. And I look at that too. I look at the moral character of these people who are saying these things. Like, I use my poor beloved deceased brother, rest in peace. He got to a point where he's like totally demotivated, doesn't want to work, doesn't want to take a job, just live off SSI, claiming all sorts of disabilities and so on and so forth, and drinking the Kool-Aid like it's going out of style. And I thought, I questioned him year on year. Isn't it better to get out in the world and struggle and get a job and try to keep your head above water no matter how hard it is? even if you've got to go 15,000 miles away from your homeland to do it, no matter, though the path may be long and filled with treachery and difficulty, giving up halfway is not the answer. You got to go all the way. Well, so that's why Lao Tzu wrote, the pursuit of Tao is very difficult for the average individual, and very few would pursue it, and those who do are noble and awakened. So when I see my friends from university and high school just wallowing in alcoholism and decadence in the culture, in the televised pop culture, it's heartbreaking, but it's like arguing with a brick wall, or a goat banging its head against the wall. What's that old Dean Martin song? Hey, Neil. Thank you. 谢谢. An ant can't move a rubber tree plant 'cause he's got high hopes. He's got high hopes. He's got high apple pie in the sky hopes. So anytime you're feeling blue, just remember that ant can't move a rubber tree plant. Yeah, so I don't know. I'm not gonna focus on it. Giving them any attention is giving them credit. You guys know what's up. You know the drill. You know the lowdown. You know 9/11 was an inside job with the Saudi family and the Bushes, and the U.S. Military was told to stand down. You know that there's questionability of whether any airplanes were involved or not. You know that it was controlled demolition. And if you grew up young, if you're a millennial and you weren't an adult at that time, then, I mean, that culture's been completely shut down. The narrative of questioning what happened that day has been completely turned off. It's just, okay, this is the accepted story, go with it. No, that's not the accepted story. The people who were alive and awake and aware at that time, I think most of them knew better. I mean, I remember I was at university the day it happened, and I saw this orange glow filling the room, and I thought that the room was on fire or something. And I look up, and it's a big television set in the rafters or whatever on the wall. You know how they have TVs I was in the sub, the student union building, and the whole room filled with orange light. And I look up and I'm like, something's on fire. And then I see this imagery, digital imagery it looked like, of this scenario of so-called planes flying into the New York towers. And it didn't come as a surprise to me either, because I have a friend who, in that town, he's the son of the chief of police, and he had been asking me just a couple of weeks before that. He's like, you know, what if terrorists attacked the U.S. 3 weeks before the 9/11 tragedy, right before the semester, right at the start of the semester? He was asking me what I would do if terrorists started flying airplanes into buildings. And I'm like, where the fuck did that question come from? Just out of nowhere, he asks me this. And I thought, that's strange. He said, would you grab your rifle and start going around and shooting towel heads? And I'm like, why would I do that? I'm like, how would I know that any of that was real? Like, if I wasn't there, if I didn't actually see it happen, then why would I believe something I saw on television? So I grew up with a dad who was Navy intelligence and spent 20 years in the system, in the Navy, achieved the rank of officer, was involved in World War II. His battleship got 13 silver stars, And he raised me with the understanding that everything on television was fake. Everything. All the narratives that they were promoting. He was on the ground and saw the things that happened, and he said everything they told you about it, and in TV and in your school corporate page shilled out history books, that all of it was BS. And so I grew up with a healthy skepticism for anything that was being shown on television, whether it be the moon landing or 9/11 or Globe Planet, Tesla putting a car into space. And it's not even that. I mean, when you just look at it for face value, it starts to break down immediately that these are shot on set and digital imagery, CGI, and all kinds of nonsense going on. So it's like, if they've lied to you once, then how can you trust them a second time? So all you need to do is catch the fact that they openly lied to the public as a psychological operation to manipulate their way of thinking and to manipulate their emotions and sentiments. If they've done that one time, why would you trust them a second time? So I've seen enough to know that the deception has been vast and varied and widespread, universal. With that knowledge, that means that there's absolutely nothing I can trust out of these people. Nothing. So that's my understanding of the situation. And in nearly 50 years of life now, 40 and a half, 40 plus, nearing 50, nearing half a century of life, none of it has ever mattered. In the day-to-day life of an individual human being, the talking heads on television and what they're highlighting has, it looks like it's snowing. That's crazy talk. It's definitely raining, but I see some like almost snowflakes falling down. Maybe it's something else. I'll let you know later. So in that nearly half century that I've been alive, none of it has ever mattered. I mean, the loss of our civil liberties and freedoms definitely has an impact on daily life. That's something I can get behind. I can get behind Richard Dolan's idea of keep fighting the good fight. Keep blowing the horn of resistance. Keep shouting back so that the crowd, the lemmings, don't just rush off the cliff. Try to warn as many as you can. Try to do what you can. If you take out one of their ops, if you take out one of their players, then that's one op or situation that you save dozens, if not hundreds or thousands later from having to deal with that one specific situation. And I think that's worth it somehow, at least to sound the horn and commiserate with brothers and sisters and friends and family of like-minded individuals, and try to keep laying the evidence out there for the lemmings or for folks that just need an extra dose of the red pill to be woken up. I mean, like my beloved mother, for some reason, I point out the fact that Beijing Biden's fully in the back pocket of the Chinese, and she says, well, Donald Trump and his daughter are over there doing business too. And it's like, yeah, but Jesus Christ, Mom, they don't have the same background of control that these other guys do. These other guys are tried and true traitors and have sold out. There's piles and piles of evidence of them being controlled by the guys over here. Whereas Donnie and his daughter, yeah, they did business over here, but they did it on their own 2 feet. They didn't do it by selling out. They did it by buying the trademarks and patents of their own name for their own products. And I agree as well that, I mean, if you're in bed with the enemy, you're in bed with the enemy. But it's like, okay, so these guys are over here selling nuclear secrets to the so-called adversaries, the Clintons, the Bidens, the Obamas. And that's the same as coming over here to make neckties? Are you fucking out of your mind? Oh, it rattles my fucking cage to no end that this clear and simple logic can be overlooked by so many. This guy was caught in a hotel smoking crack and choking 15-year-old hookers, Hunter Biden, and telling these people that his father, the vice president, would be in on the deal to get a certain amount of the cut and proceeds so that they could have favors from the U.S. government. That's not something the Trumps have ever been caught doing. It's not something they were doing. So, apples and oranges. I mean, like I said, you can't convince the other side of the fence about anything. And it's not about politics to me. It's not about Democrats versus Republicans, but it is about conservatism versus progressivism. The progressivism of men running around in public, showing their penises to small children and wearing lipstick and high heels and shaking their asses and getting 10 and 11-year-old boys to dress up like girls is completely antithetical to everything I stand for. I stand for a normal, family-centered society where there's a mother and a father that try their fucking damnedest to get along, to raise their children and bring them up to be heterosexual and get married and have kids of their own and follow normal, ordinary family principles that were laid out for me specifically in the 1950s by folks that wanted to live ordinary, simple lives. Now, that doesn't mean it has to be Abrahamic religion model. I am firmly convinced of freedom of religion. Believe whatever you want. And if you do feel like you need to be deviant and aberrant and go against the norms of an ordinary, stabilized human society, you have the freedom to do that. There needs to be a certain segment of the society that's open and free to allow that, but it never should be promoted as the general culture. And that's why all these other countries are kicking our ass, are kicking the US's ass, because they're following the basic time-honored model of mother and father, and they're building the strength of their nation through the acquisition of tangible assets, ports, things that the US used to do, all that shit that the US built, all the technology that the US developed over the last 100 years. The rest of the world gets it. China gets it. But at the same time, they're able to utilize a labor force the likes of which the world hasn't seen probably since ancient Rome, to build aqueducts and new roads and this, that, and the other thing. And I mean, it just goes on ad nauseum. Look into your cities. Come over here, look at these cities. They're well ordered. It may be under authoritarianism, and I totally disagree with the way they go about it. But it's their system, and when in Rome, do as the Romans. It's some nerve-wracking shit, y'all. It's like when you're driving down the highway and you got all these aberrant people doing all kinds of crazy shit. It's like, how does that help the ordinary flow of life in any way? When you get on the expressway, you drive expressway speeds. You don't look at the phone. You don't sit there and fiddle with shit. You don't slow down to 60. You get up, you get moving, you get your shit done. Set your map or whatever on your phone. If that's what you need, you set that before you get en route and start traveling. You don't call your friends and stuff or try to text message. I saw a guy in a Ferrari yesterday when I was coming home on the highway. He was in a beautiful Ferrari. And when I looked over and saw him, I was like, oh my God, he was a total fucking Mr. Potato Head turd. And the first thing I see him doing is just digging in his nose like he's been up doing coke all night and is looking for a little extra kernel. And so he's digging in his nose, and he looks like a total beast of a man. He's got this beautiful $1 million car. And so traffic's going back and forth, and I was able to observe him probably for about 20 minutes. And every time I look over, he's not even looking at the road. He's looking down at his phone and texting. And if he's not looking down at his phone and texting, then he's digging in his nose and not looking at the road. Never once did I see him looking at the road. Maybe the car's an auto drive, I don't know. Maybe it's got the total autonomous drive or whatever. So that's a possibility. It could have that AI technology where he doesn't even have to look, pay attention. That's definitely, with that level of vehicle, that is a possibility. But it just baffled me. He did have his hands on the wheel, but he was also causing all kinds of problems in traffic too. Like he's going too slow, and then he's cutting in and out, and not keeping up with the general flow of traffic. Other crazy shit I've been seeing going on in the city, autonomous delivery vehicles, especially this little neighborhood out here. These yellow little robots have been all over the place. I saw a bunch of them going haywire over by the convenience store yesterday when I was driving through, and there were like three or four of them that were all going in different directions and kind of circling each other and stuff. And I thought, what's going on with all these dudes? And they're autonomous drive vehicles. I don't think any of them are operating at the capacity of actually delivering things, but it seems like an awful lot of investment to deliver a package. And additionally, it's slower, less efficient. It's slower and less efficient than human delivery people. And the original investment is going to be very costly. Tuning it to try to get it to work is going to take a long time. So they're spending a lot of money that isn't theirs, borrowed money. These companies go bankrupt year in on year in, and it doesn't seem to matter. Even though they don't generate a profit and they go bankrupt, they still stay in business because, like Obama said, too big to fail. They've already got such an established platform that the local money funders won't allow them to go out of business because of whatever reason. I don't know. I don't get it. Society doesn't operate with any sort of logical flow. I was listening to a program as well, and they said the cost of living just to pay rent and feed yourself, this is without making any money to save, in Los Angeles is you would have to make $50 an hour US in order to be able to survive. And there's slave labor companies usurping established industries like the taxi cab industry, companies like Uber and Lyft that have usurped the general already well-established industry that was able to make money for people who worked in it, with independent contractors from immigrants that are coming in and extorting those people, and they're driving them into debt year on year. And they're claiming that you make $20 an hour if you work for those companies, which is less than half of what is necessary for cost of living. But the reality of it is, I was out there and drove Uber Lyft for 6 months, and the reality of it is that not only do you make less than minimum wage, less than $5 to $10 an hour, less than that, you make far less than that with the amount of net income. But once you calculate a couple of months with overhead rising costs for tires and oil change and depreciation on the vehicle, you're making negative profits. And what I mean by that is you're not making any money, you're going into debt. And I've got another guy, another situation, another scenario of a person that has zero fucking logic. If you're out there and you're listening to me and I know who you are, and you know that I'm talking about you. with the Uber Lyft thing. You're still like lauding it. I called my Uber Lyft, or Uber Lyft this, that, or the other thing. Oh, the Uber Lyft driver seemed happy. 90% of Uber Lyft drivers quit within the first year. So if you see an Uber Lyft driver who seems happy, it's because he's only been doing it for less than a year, and he's got all the incentives up front, and he or she thinks they're making money, and they haven't got the intelligence to make the calculation over time into the long run to see how far they will go into debt. And that's becoming increasingly the way companies are running under this independent contractor, which should be absolutely 100% illegal to do that. And nobody should support it. If you use Uber Lyft, you're guilty. Don't do it. Put them out of business. They shouldn't be able to operate that way. It's criminal. I know the system through and through. I've watched dozens of documentaries. I worked in it. I did the calculations. I talked to other drivers, and it's a total 100% fucking scam. With that said, that's all the time I got for this morning. I hope you've enjoyed the Live Drive Jive Archive with your host with the most, Frank Monday. Let us pray. Lord of the universe, vast and the mighty one, protect and guide us, bring health, wealth, and longevity to all the friends and family out there, and all the new people tuning in. Make sure you sub the channel, hit the alerts button, like and subscribe, all that good happy horse shit. And if you've watched any of my videos, over 500 videos now on my YouTube channel, if you've watched any of them over the course of the years that I've been doing this, 2 years I guess now, you might like to click on my Patreon and drop me $1 so I can get a coffee, or a pack of smokes, or a lollipop for my kids, or whatever, or nothing, because the channel's never been monetized. And I love all y'all good looking, happy, sexy people out in TV land, and I'll keep doing what I'm doing and staying true to the message. As above, so below, into the abodes of the future. Until next time.